in North Vietnam, just at the Chinese border in Bac Ha district, there is a small village named Po. It's an interesting place. It's really interesting to go off the beaten path like that because there's not a tourist inside. And really, there's not a lot of tourists that visit that area. So the connection you get with the people is completely different than in touristic areas. We had made an arrangement to visit a family there, to shoot, to photograph the family and how they live in this poor village. It doesn't really look like a village. It's just like random houses distributed randomly between the trees, somewhat, and like footpaths between them. To get there, you drive. It's in a mountain hill, so you drive up the mountain, and it's not visible from the main road, so you really have to know where it is. We drove past it, and we had to turn around and find it. It's even if the guide we had been there multiple times before. So we parked the car where we could. Then we had a footpath, not long, it's not a long walk, but a narrow path down to the village, where we were greeted by an old man and his family. And this is the result from that trip. To get a window in people's life like that is truly an unique experience. This is so different from my reality, from my life. And doing stuff like this, it really helps me to focus on what matters in life. When we arrived, an old man invited us in the house. This was the grandfather of the house. He was there alone with his grandchildren and some of the grandchildren's friends. The parents were out working, and this is a very common situation in Vietnam. Once the parents are old and they raise the kids, and once they're too old to do really anything on the fields and stuff like that, they start to take care of the children, and you will have to take care of your parents. It's kind of they never leave the house. They live together, and you start to take care of your parents. But everyone has a role. Like I said, they were out working. The grandfather was babysitting the kids, so they could be out working. And even the kids down to like 5-year-old, everyone, they were getting water, they were getting woods for the fire. Everybody had a role. And everyone shared this small, simple house, like you see here. 2 spaces. The front space where the entrance was a small corner for a kitchen, if you could call it. It was like on the mud floor, because there was no fancy tiles, just mud floor. There was a small corner where you could make an open fire to cook. I think there was about 8 people living in this small house. And in every corner there was a bed, and there was no privacy. There was some curtain you could pull in front of your bed, but privacy is, for poor people in Southeast Asia, this is normal. Privacy is a luxury available only to the better off. Poor people just don't have privacy. But even though this house did not completely protect them from wind or rain, or at least not heavy rain, and it can really rain a lot there during the rainy season. It was still a pretty good house compared to what many others had. It was built with proper wood. Others might have to make their homes out of like this thin bamboo walls. And this tends to be the thing when people are comparing their lives with other people's life. They always tend to go for the negative stuff. I'm not as well off as this guy, and therefore I am angry. Instead of saying, I'm at least better off than they, so therefore I'm grateful. But this is another story, so let's carry on. The goal of this particular visit was not to tell this family story. I was there scouting for a photo tour, a workshop that I would do about a year later, which is coming up now in next September. So the purpose was to make individual photos to sell this tour, to advertise and market this tour. So I did kind of end up spending too much time on some individual shots instead of approaching this from a storyteller's viewpoint. And that's all good. You know, I got a few photos that can stand alone and serve their purpose. But today I would go about this differently, and I would go about this from a storyteller's point of view. But this is what I enjoy so much about photography. It's this. There's always different approaches, there's always different angles, different purpose with what you are doing, and there's always room to improve your photography and grow as a photographer. And that's kind of what I think matters, and that's what you should strive for in photography. You know, be better at telling stories, be better at photography. That's what's gonna get you great result, not the logo on your camera. To start a shoot like this can always be a little tricky because everyone is a little self-conscious and shy, and most people will just line up and pose, which is not exactly what I'm there for. But I try to control and influence people as little as possible. And if they want to pose, I just let them, for as long as it takes. Eventually, people start to forget about me and they're doing their own stuff. And that especially goes with kids. I have bad experience trying to control them in any way. Just let things happen. This situation, this is a very low light situation. So I had to be wide open at f2.8. My ISO was very high. It was 3200, sometimes even 6400. You will get noise, but you can always deal with noise in post, but noise is fine. There's nothing wrong with noise, really. Low light photography like this is one of my favorite things to do because it brings out so much atmosphere in my photos. I never use flash, almost never at least, use flash in conditions like this because flash just completely kills the mood. Available light will always give me more the look and the feeling I want. Yes, I get noise, I sometimes get a little underexposed. And of course, being wide open like this means that you have a very shallow depth of field, which can be problematic sometimes, especially if you're shooting multiple people and you want every frame in focus. And I also need to use as slow shutter speed as I can get away with. And that sometimes gives me a little soft photos, but that's I don't care as long as I get the desired mood and the story I'm trying to bring out with my photo. That trumps everything. Low light photography is not easy. It's not very complicated, but it does require you to study the light you have and be able to use what you have. You need to understand the exposure triangle and how to operate your camera. This is really important for low light photography. And you do need to practice. You need to gain competence to do this. Like I said, in situations like this, I do not post my subjects. I'm just there shooting, waiting, seeing what happens. And what happens, happens. And I try to catch that. I try to show the space where they are living, 8 people in a small house with a mud floor, open fire on the floor, and absolutely no comfort at all. They have electricity, unstable electricity, but that's about the only comfort they have. Toys for the kids is whatever they can find. The smallest ones, they don't even wear diapers, they're just naked, the lower half is naked, and they just do their business wherever and somebody just picks that up. I noticed that their little bodies were covered with insect bites and small wounds. Some of them actually looked infected. And the hair on their head was very thin, and there was something on the skull and the hair, that some wounds, that it was heartbreaking. But still, these kids did not show any signs of being unhappy or not taken care of. On the contrary, yes, dirty, but just look at where they live. It's really hard to stay clean. The older kids, the girls, I'm guessing 8, 9, 10 years old-ish, they're getting boots for the fires, they are getting water in heavy buckets from the well, making fire in the house, cooking, taking care of the smaller kids. These are young adults with adult responsibilities. That's life when you're poor. But everyone had a smile, everyone had a voice, and everyone seemed to have some joy in their life. Except the old man. He was really happy to see us, but he seemed broken, tired, sad, and just beaten by life. But finding his joy through the children, which he took really, really good care of. And this is it. This is their life. It's really rare that people from this status in society in these countries, they go from this to something better. It just doesn't really happen. You know, there are some exceptions, of course, but if you're born poor, you stay poor, and your children will also be poor. This is their story. This is the story I got with my photos. I have more photos, I have more stories, but this is enough of this video. Should give you an idea on how I approach these things. With these kind of photos, you really don't need, or you shouldn't need, a narrative like this to see everything I talked about here. But to get it without the narrative, you need to look at the photo. You need to see the photo. You need to look for the details, because the big pictures can only give you an idea. It's only the big picture. It's all in the details. In the world of instant gratification and overcooked photos produced to get likes, it seems like people are losing their ability or interest of any deeper meaning in anything, not just photos. This kind of photography is where my heart is. telling people stories. You know, and there are many formats of doing that. There are many ways of doing that. For example, if you get a one great powerful image that evokes emotion, being anger or joy or you know, the feeling of you need to do something, you know, you need to help or you need to change your life, and this can all be done with good photography. And also, if there's not this emphasis on this one particular photo, you can get like a story, a sequence of photos that tell a story. With or without captions, that's just up to your format. And blogs are a great way to tell stories. And this, what I'm trying to do here, is more like combining my photos, my videos with narrative, telling stories and trying to include tips and hints for people that are interested in growing their photography. I just love doing this. I just find these type of material very interesting. I hope you do too. Thank you for watching. Bye.